It is 6 p.m.
It's not broadcast, it's rebroadcast, it's available.
Well, no, I mean, people can be on it right now, right? No. Other board members.
Good evening. It is 6 p.m., so we'll call to order the October 26th Board of Directors meeting for the Lake Lemon Conservancy District. We do have 4 members present, so we do have a quorum. Open up the floor for public comments. See no one coming to the podium. We'll move on to approval of minutes for the September 28th Park Board meeting. Do I have a motion to approve? I will so move. Do I have a second?
Well,
Do I have a second for the September 28th?
I was not here.
All right, so let me just slow down and see if
Yep.
Mike wants to.
Sure.
Hey, Mike.
How you doing?
All
No worries.
Two copies. So you know Brian Bosma?
I know Brian.
Yeah, he used to be our township attorney for 20+ years. Till the Democrats got in. Sorry, Les.
Mike, are you up to seconding the minutes for the September 28th board meeting?
You bet.
Okay, well,
Correction. It said Mike Blackwell seconded for the fun,
Yeah, I noticed that.
and so just a typo.
okay.
And I do second the fun.
Okay. So seconded with the scrivener's error corrected. Any discussion or further?
I didn't know we were on the record, Mr. Chair.
No worries. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain because I was not here.
So passes 3 with 2 abstains. Moves on to item 4, adoption of the 2024 annual budget and resolution 102303, statement of salaries and wages. Adam, you want to take that one first?
Yes, I'll go ahead and pull that up. Sharing on the screen, we have resolution 102303, the ordinance and resolution for appropriations and tax rates. This is what we have been discussing in July and August with by the line items. We had our public hearing in September. So now we are doing the actual public adoption. Within this, it shows the total adopted budget of $1,736,572. That is the authorized expenditures. Our adopted tax levies are $850,000 for the general fund, and then the $57,619 for cumulative conservancy improvement.
Adam, can I, just for the record, will you state that that has not changed from previous year?
Correct. That has not changed. The adopted tax levy has not changed for the general fund, which is the actual number that we request. For the cumulative conservancy improvement fund, that is the set rate of 0.033, and that only changes with the assessed values. So actually the total tax rate is 0.5198. Which has gone down from 0.58 last year, and that is due to an increased assessment within the district.
Excuse me, but that's twice the tax rate. Because the tax rate is 1/2 of that. We're doubling the tax for the special tax. We're not taxing people 51 cents on $100 of assessed value. We're taxing them on 26 cents, 25 or 25.5 cents.
The general fund is the special benefits tax, which is the $850,000 total that was raised this year, 2023. So that would bring that total to 0.48. And then the cumulative conservancy improvement is that additional 0.0.
Certainly get to the 0.033. But I thought that our conservancy tax was lower than 30 cents of $100. So the 51 or 52, almost 52 cents. And maybe I'm wrong, but I didn't think that, I thought our tax rate was still under 30 cents on $100.
No. So that is the tax rate on the $100 for that $850,000 request.
Okay, so what is our, if we didn't have the special tax, what would be our tax rate?
If we didn't have the additional, effectively, we are kind of doubling
Thank you,
our rate.
that's what I'm trying to get at.
Within the budget, we show sort of our base budget and then the additional amount that we're doing for sedimentation. From the state's perspective, that's all one budget,
Okay.
but from our perspective, it's two. So the adopted tax rate, if we didn't do that, would be approximately 50% less.
Good, thank you.
I got it, yeah, so we earmarked essentially $425,000. It's almost a regular request for the standard operating budget. And then we added on an additional $425 to help with the sediment project.
And that's under general?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so remind me again, so what's the cumulative?
The cumulative conservancy improvement tax is the fund that we have that's earmarked for capital improvements.
Okay. So like eventually we could use that for the new restroom or whatever?
Correct, yeah. And we've really hardly used any of that. We use some for picnic tables, grills.
General maintenance stuff, but we have, I'm not sure right now exactly what it is, but that's built up some.
Yeah, currently, because $50,000 doesn't buy much, we're letting the money accumulate so that when the board makes a decision as to what's the best investment to make, we have funds to do so.
We used to put, what, 5,000 a year into a cumulative fund and then move it into a CD or something like that.
Correct, yeah, and that was actually with that last resolution where everything got classified as the general fund, we got rid of that, and that was the cumulative improvement fund, and we primarily just had that in CDs. Correct, and then when we sold those off, it's all part of the general fund now.
And the reason I bring this, because when we do our 2025 taxes, the adopted tax rate, unless we continue to keep taxes at what they are, it would be half of the 51. Would we agree on that?
If we only requested 420.
If we only, yes, and if we request a quarter of what we're asking for, I'm for the hydraulic dredging, don't get me wrong. He dragged me to Ohio 6 years ago, so, but I just want to be clear, because can't be the only one that's getting the tax hammer, from constituents. If I am, then I'm gonna have to step down. But, anyway, so I just want to be clear. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. Any other discussion on the budget? If not, I would entertain a motion to adopt resolution 10-2303 as presented.
I'll move, so move.
Motion, do I have a second? Moved in second. Any further discussion? See none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to treasurer's report. Debbie had a last minute thing come up, so she's not here. So I'm going to ask Adam to also fill in for the treasurer's report.
Yes, first we'll go through our September financials. In September, we had a total income of $13,543. Of that, almost $6,500 was park admission fees, and the remainder was from primarily watercraft and launch fees. Our total expenses for September were $29,543. There's really nothing out of the ordinary. We did have the bill for regular gas at $3,000. It's because we have a 1,000-gallon tank that we fill up. Besides that, primarily wages and salaries. We have a bill for our grass contract, and then $1,600 for our consultant engineer, and that's when we submit the dredging payment request, and they verify the sediment loads. We go on to the actual allowance of vouchers and expenditures. Again, kind of all normal operating. We have a $2,900 insurance payment, the $1,800 of grass mowing, the unleaded fuel.
Adam, can I interrupt you?
Yes.
Sorry, so I have a question on the balance sheet.
Yeah.
I think that's back above here, right?
Yes.
It's probably an easy answer, but under fixed assets, it says we have trucks worth $132,000. What is that? What does that mean?
That would include, the office truck, the old dump truck, once we finally get rid of that. And then we've sold the new dump truck. So
Oh,
there's
we still
still,
have the old one?
yeah, we still have the 1970
Does it run?
something, no, it's not. So that one is gonna be up for sale, and actually, Mike, we have been in contact with Butch Evans.
Thank you.
It's, we actually have, talked with him about selling on consignment, the excavator and dozer, and trying to help find somebody for.
I hope he helps you out. He,
Yeah, he's
Is
a
the
very good.
Dozer,
guy.
that's under trucks too, or?
No, I don't know if the dozers,
Is that what I was gonna ask about other,
we have the Ford
Fords.
F-350, so.
Okay, well,
And then the boats is primarily the barges.
yeah, okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
and Sea-Doo and the workboat.
Yeah, so we have the pontoon, the two barges, and the Sea-Doo on there.
That's good news. I appreciate you reaching out to him. He's been very helpful.
He's been very, very nice to work with.
Very good.
I think Debbie's mentioned several times that those are sort of inflated.
Correct.
That those fixed assets, those numbers are probably.
Yeah, those were based off of replacement cost and,
In accounting ease, that's how you get a balance sheet. One question on the Watkins charges $109 for something, general business. Which is over and above what they normally charge us.
Yeah, that was actually for postage reimbursement,
Okay,
so.
all right, thank you.
Any other questions on the claims? If not, I'd entertain a motion for approval of the September claims in the amount of $21,657.20.
So move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and second. Any further discussion on the claims? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, next we have resolution 102304, the 2024 fees and charges. If you look through your packet, per request, I put in the percentage increases for the various item amounts. Just next to the numbers there. So these fees and charges were worked on with the budget committee, which is the board officers, and then these numbers were taken into account when we were looking at our expected revenue for 2024. So we've gone through these before. When we look at just kind of the over 10 horsepower boats, the residents are going from 80 to 85. That is an increase of approximately 6.25%. The non-residents are going from 119 to 130, which is about 9.2%. So we are raising, and again, with under the less than 10 horsepower, a little over 5% increase for the residents, over 7 for the non-residents. So we were trying to raise them both, but try to make sure that, we're taking into account the non-resident residents, so we're not raising resident fees more. Again, with these fees and charges, they're primarily capped by our contract, where we can only increase them according to the consumer price index, and they are pretty much at their maxes now. So with regard to the voting and access type fees, those are really can only move with consumer price index. From this point, there's not much more wiggle room in those.
So you're speaking about the contract with the CBU.
Correct.
Thank you. Which is why guys can raise theirs at a certain level.
Yeah, correct. Those are crazy.
Twice what ours are.
$40 a day, I think, to get on the lake.
Yeah.
On weekdays, I think it's more on weekends.
Which effectively means if we've maxed out based on CPU, what we're charging today has the same effective dollar buying power as what it did when the Conservancy District was found. So yeah, the dollar amount's gone up, but the effective value of that in today's dollars is effectively the same.
We did also raise the daily boat passes 10% for less than 10 horsepower. The boats over 10 horsepower remaining at $15 for the day, and that's again because we were at that cap. Personal watercraft, we did raise a little over 4%. Ballast boats were remaining the same. Really, this was the first year that we input that, so it was kind of, seeing how it worked out, which we did pretty decent on there. It was nice using the two kind of pass systems, so we could put those on there. So we did not raise the rate on that.
And with that, next year's accounting will show how we're collecting that money. We talked.
Yes, correct. And actually in your financials here, we've broken out that for this year as well. So if you go to that actual line item, there is the ballast boat line item separated.
Okay, thank you.
So this is just curiosity.
Yeah.
So this ballast boat fee is a new thing. It doesn't date back to the beginning of the Conservancy. We could have set it arbitrarily and the CBU doesn't.
It's an environment.
Do they now control it if we say 200? Okay.
We're getting pushback from constituents.
Well, I understand that, yeah.
Yeah, but no, CBU doesn't have any say in this particular one because it wasn't a rate that
Wasn't a
was.
thing.
Good question.
Continuing to move on, fishing tournaments are raising from $90 to $100, about 11% increase. The sublease agreements did go from 250 to 270, which was an 8% increase. And then commercial sublease agreements also went up about 8%, it was 7.7, 650 to $700. The annual fee for a commercial marina went up 7.7. We tried to meet almost that 8% inflation number, plus or minus a little to get to a usable whole number. The occupied wet slips went up 10%, and occupied PWC or jet ski slips went up 10% as well. And that's for the marina and the Bloomington Yacht Club. They pay us a fee for being a club on the lake, and then they pay us a fee for each occupied slip. So every boat that they have moored there, they have to pay a fee on top of the non-for-profit, and that would actually be the Bloomington Yacht Club. The annual fee is $700, and occupied wet slips are $50. For the park and special event fees on lake events went up 8%, and that currently is primarily the IU Dale England Cup and the other regattas that they host. So it's what they pay per day. We are kind of looking as well at the IU Ski Club to see if they would like to host some skiing competitions out here as well. Special events in the parks, $500 per day, and that's if somebody wants to rent out a large area and say host a wedding, put up tents. We have had people rent out like the point section. We can't close the beach down during operating, but we can allow them to have events. We usually only get 1 or 2 of those a year, so you can really justify raising that higher. The shelter rental went up 8.6%, $175 to $190 per day. The storage fee remained the same, which would be for the boat storage fees. And then we did introduce a vendor fee of $50 per day. That's because we did have some interest of vendors coming out, like Kona Ice came out a couple times at the beach, and some other food trucks. And then that way, when we host events, we can have a set fee that's in here that's been codified that we can charge them to come out. So we are hoping to get like more food trucks out of the beach to try to bring more people out to Bloomington and hosting events.
So one of the discussions when you held these events, which I think have been pretty successful, was some departments get a cut of the fee of what they make. We don't do that.
No, this would be that
This would be
vendor
that.
fee.
All right.
Administratively, this is easier because.
Absolutely. You know, this is what people are saying, you know, why are we doing this?
Yeah. I mean, I do think this is easier, and if we had
I do too.
we can do that. That being said, I know Upland and Oliver did donate like some of their product as well for the sales there, so it's good for this movement. For motorized vehicles, this would be the park entry fee. That went up 10% as well, $10 to $11 for the day, and then 14% for an annual pass, $70 to $80. And we have seen a transition from more people are buying the annuals than they have in the past. I think that is because the daily rates have gone up pretty substantially if you're used to $7. I don't know how many times we get, well, last year it was only $7. You know, it was 6 years. The administrative fee is $10 per page.
Since,
Yes, 10 cents per page. We have never actually charged that. And then the dredging is not in there as well, since we're not doing in-house dredging.
So, and I know this is probably not the time, because I'd probably be in your manager's report, but if we wanted dredging from you and Ross in the large barge, I mean, is that possible? If it's not being used by Heartland,
No,
it's not possible?
no. Well, we're getting ready to sell the excavator, so the large barge.
Large excavator
Yes, yeah. And then we will be selling that barge as well.
through Butch Evans possibly?
Potentially through Butch Evans, we have had some interest in the large barge, so it may be worthwhile even to do a sealed bid on that.
So we would just be keeping the small barge and the smaller excavator?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, yeah. Are there any questions on the fees and charges for 2024 resolution 102304?
any questions on the fees and charges? I will note for the sublease fees, there still is the $40 discount if people complete those before March 1st. So there's an opportunity for freeholders to get a savings off the standard rates, which is historical practice. With that, entertain a motion to.
Just a quick question.
Oh, sorry.
You know, well, for the dredging, if we are keeping the smaller barge and excavator, but it's a NA for 24, so we're just keeping it for our own use. We're not gonna hire it out anymore.
Correct, yeah, I mean, so if we hired it out, it would be a bid process, so similar to when we leased these large barge, we actually had to send that out for a sealed bid process to utilize that equipment. So as a government, we can't just rent out the equipment, we would have to put it out for bid. And that does not exclude that or preclude that if that were something that we wanted to do. This is essentially just saying that in-house, we are not doing.
Yeah, okay, I mean, I know we were heading that way, I just wanted to bring it up. So the idea being that they go with the outside guy, with whatever they want.
Yeah, and then we have used it pretty substantially for debris, and actually, me and Ross were out yesterday collecting debris.
Okay, yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, up by the creek, there was a pretty big jam by Dorothy Lane there, and thankfully some of the residents there had some equipment on land where we could grab these trees and kind of get them over there and drag them up with their skid steers and clear all that out.
Have you had any requests for dredging for this coming spring?
I have not yet, no.
How does that work? Does it go through you and then you?
They can contact us, and we do have that interested list, even on our website, I believe there is a list if you have an interested party. And essentially when we have enough people, we can solicit out, try to bring somebody in and then give them that list.
I'm sure my neighbor's gonna want that.
So yeah, so with McCullough, since they were willing to come down, we gave him the contact information of folks that were interested, and then we were not part of it, so we let them take care of that billing, and that way there's kind of no appearance of kind of being in between the.
Well, and I hate to stay on dredging, but, you know, if McCullough, would you allow McCullough to use the large barge, rent the large barge?
McCullough has a large barge.
We do.
Yeah, it was on the lake this year. The reason it was
Same
not.
size as ours?
Yeah, well, I think it's like a 70-yard hopper. It's a big one, yeah.
Okay,
And for Solomon Harbor, at the time, the hydraulic equipment was there, so they could not fit that large barge between Ellis Point and the hydraulic.
you know how wide it is?
It's wider than ours. I wouldn't say it's
Yeah.
50 feet wide.
Okay, so ours is 40, right? Ours is 40?
Ours is, yeah. It's like
Because it needs a 48 wide swath, because it needs 4 feet on each side, so ours is 40.
I think so, yeah. Ours are 3 12-foot sections. Correct. Yeah, so he does have a large barge, but he was not able to get into all those areas. So they started with the large barge for most of their work, and then they brought in their smaller barge.
So does he have a push boat?
Yes.
He has a push boat, okay, all right. No more questions on dredging at this time.
Any more discussion on the proposed fees and charges for 2024? Not, I entertain a motion to adopt resolution 102304, approving said fees.
I'll make that motion.
So I have a second. Moved in second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Who seconded the? Looks like any other items for the treasurer's report? Let's move on to item 6, District 7, Zone 1 dredging discussion.
All right, I had met with Carol Gentry a couple times with their interest in expanding the Zone 1 to the south to the east side of Ellis Point. After the first time I met, we came back and that area did increase a little bit. This area in yellow is the requested addition to Zone 1. It's about 1.4 acres. We were estimating that there was approximately a 4-foot depth of sediment on average to remove in that area. And then at our yardage cost would be about $64,800 cost to the Conservancy District. The area in blue that is highlighted is what they proposed for Solomon Harbor to pay for, which is a little over a half acre and about $25,000 for the total cost. I know Carol is not here today. Would you like to?
I want to thank you and Ross for meeting with her. This has taken some burden off of what I deal with in the largest district. And we're willing to move forward with the $25,000 estimate, understanding that it is an estimate. I spoke with Carol today. I believe you and her have both agreed that this was kind of a safety issue for the people that coming down the Bean Blossom Creek and the people coming out of Chitwood. So there's a lot of boats that come through that area. And she also said that you would possibly, after this is done or sometime during or whenever, you would build sediment traps in there, beyond the Lotus, so that we capture some sediment before it gets into those channels. I don't know, do you remember that?
Yeah, we have been working on potential future plans to try to capture sediment there. Not necessarily the LLCD, but just kind of what would be the best practices for that area to trap sediment. As far as deepening along the Lotus field to try to create a little capture basin, and then keeping some of this northern area in this zone vegetated to keep that sediment moving.
We will always need to be dredged. I think you said perpetuity. I've never heard that word until you used it. I had to look it up. But you're absolutely right. I mean, this is something that we will always need to do in District 7 and District 6.
As long as that stream comes out right there, you're gonna get a pile of sediment there.
Yeah, well, that's why this is a good deal. We're willing to, pick up our costs and, I would just ask for the board's recommendation. The district manager has met with Carol and this is his suggestion and I agree. And I do thank him for meeting with her and coming up with this plan. So if you're looking for a motion for to pass, does this have a resolution attached to it?
It does not, and it has been a plan that we have been working on. I'm not gonna say that I'm not for or against it. I've been working to help with the plan for her to bring the data to it. So I am not going to say a manager's recommendation for this, for or against it. But I have been working with her to get the information on the cost, yardage, and everything that is there.
So it sounds to me though, like they're asking the Conservancy to split the bill for that 65,000. Is that correct? So can we afford that given everything else that's going on? And is it in our budget for 2024?
You weren't here for her to give, did you look at the meeting?
I did. I watched it on the video. And it seemed to me like there was some discussion of this even at the prior meeting, was there not? Or maybe.
It's been brought up before. I think.
Yeah, or it was brought up, but anyway, But I guess my question is then, where's the money coming from?
Well, Adam would bring up the entire map of the dredging area, zone 1 through 6. I think that would explain how we got here.
Yeah, I know there was some discussion about whether that should have been included in the original layout of
And
what
it
we
just,
were gonna
it
do.
just got missed. It got missed in strategic planning. I don't, I'm not gonna, I think we move forward from this and don't go back and point fingers. It just got missed.
Okay, because I know there was a couple of resolutions to accept the boundaries and so on of the dredging areas. Wasn't in there.
Yeah, well, the maintenance line also got moved, and it used to go from, Possum Trot, which is Point Avalon, to Point Hingaville, okay? Well, and then that got moved as well. So, again, this area just got missed.
Well, not to put too fine a point on it, but you say it'll cost the conservancy $64,000, but that then zone 7 is chipping in 25,000, so it's partially offset, so cost the conservancy is
Total of 90 then for the project, right?
Yes,
I mean, the way I read it,
yeah.
you saw it on
That's
there
true,
is
that's-
that our cut
okay.
is 65,
I
the
can see.
district cut is 25. So I mean, my question is some money in there for this? I mean,
And there are, one thing as we're looking through this is there are 2 resolutions that were approved in 2020. That approved those zones. So there was the approval of the cost specifications and designs that approved the Shrewsbury report as presented for those zones 1 through 5. And there was a second resolution for the bond monies that also approved those specifications for those zones 1 through 5 as presented in that Shrewsbury report. So it does beg the question if those are going to be, those resolutions need to be amended as it is changing the specifications.
I guess the questions that I have, and I'm not comfortable voting for it yet, doesn't mean I'm opposed to it. I just, for me, I would like a little bit more information that I was hoping that we'd see today. One is, are there any other areas that we potentially missed? Because I'd like to sort of address that in one fell swoop, if there's other areas we need to consider. But 2 is how, I want to make sure that, I mean, it looks like there's 13, 15 homes in this particular area. And again, I fully acknowledge that this is an area where a lot of the sedimentation is dropping. So there may be a very strong argument as to why this is something that should be a broader conservancy district thing. And there's been some good discussion on that as to why that's the case. But I just want to make sure that if we do this, that we understand, are there other areas that this applies for, so that we understand the big picture. And if I have that information, I'm comfortable voting one way or the other on it. But
And I do think we'll have to take in consideration the cost of the contracts for next year. We are very nearing the point of full at that upland basin, so that will be probably 2 weeks or so. We're actually looking at pumping down the water and let it settle a little bit.
This isn't something we need to vote on tonight.
sure,
Yeah.
to me, it seems like we have some time to.
Yeah, this, I think, what, next spring? Aren't we talking about next spring?
Yeah, so I mean, we have, I'll get on the manager's report, we have sent out the bids and everything. for that.
I
And
just
then,
want.
so I do think too, if we waited until the springtime, then we are outside of the bonding project. And then that nullifies having to deal with those past resolutions that approve those specifications. So essentially, we're in a new dredging project. And if there are additional areas that we want to, then
Good point.
I don't think it goes against any of those.
What month would that be?
When they would actually start,
Well, that they would be null and void, and then we start a new process.
well, really, this is for the bonding project, so that $1.2 million project, which is, we finished up this year. So whenever the Heartland dredging stops, this year, that is the end of that project.
When are we looking at new bids?
We have actually sent out the request for bids on those, and they are due on November 5th, I believe. So we'll be getting those this fall, and there has been actually quite a bit of interest. 3 companies have stopped and met with me, and then Charlie, our engineer with Christopher Burke, stated that he believes we'll have probably 4 to 5 bids on that. So it's pretty popular. I think a lot more people are interested in it since there's not the actual earthwork basin design with it, like the fact that there's already the basin there. So beginning next year, we'll be out of that project that was resolved.
So you're gonna be examining bids at the meeting on the 8th?
On the night, so what we will do is I need to talk with the attorney and see if we have to have a full board meeting to open the bids. What we'll do is we officially receive the bids, we will open them, and then we will give them to our engineer, Christopher Burke, to evaluate them and look at their recommendations. And then it's gonna be based on cost per yard, equipment, that kind of thing. One of the biggest things that we're gonna be looking at is our permitting for that overflow pond expires in May of 2025. So like with the current equipment that Heartland Dredging's been using, they've been averaging about 10,000 yards per month, which may not get to that point. It's taken almost a year and a half to get to about 125,000 yards now. So we're not positive who that's gonna go into, and the equipment and their ability to remove sediment is gonna have to be taken into serious consideration to make sure we can get this done in not a lot of time.
So I just have a quick question. Right now, is there potential that this could actually backfire on the intended purpose? Because right now we have a channel wall that's blocking sedimentation, it's firing that sedimentation out into the lake proper. So if we get rid of that wall, could we potentially have a situation that backfired on the residents that are along that point? Because now we're creating a capture zone potentially. And if we go in there, dredge that out, and then we move on, do those people then all of a sudden, start seeing that sediment actually coming straight up to the shoreline and decreasing their depth there?
That is a very real possibility, and that's some of the discussion that I've been having with Carol. I mean, the further you move that sediment berm, the more sediment that you have settle in that area, because that open area where the water slows down goes to the north and south.
But then on the same thought process, can we potentially leverage the mechanics of that and create a zone there so that once we've got things cleared out elsewhere, that becomes a place where we know stuff will consolidate to, and either set up barriers so that there is a channel there, but then we don't have to dredge such a wide area, right? Like if we had actually had that because you're not really, we talked about doing that further up the creek, but we're not really allowed to yet.
Correct. I mean, as far as the sediment transport, this kind of northern wall here on the creek, you would want that to come as far as possible. And then whether or not you could clear everything south of that, if you left, say, 50 to 100 feet of that earthen berm and let it build up, that would promote that sediment to shoot into the lake and to move northward. And that's one of the things that will have to be considered. If this southern wall gets cut all the way back, you will have sediment that is coming in, and instead of being forced to the west and north, it will settle out.
So what is the reason to have such a large area? How about just a channel? I mean, that's really what you want, is ingress and egress, right? Would that do it? And then it'd be a lot cheaper. I mean, the less you have to move, cheaper it gets.
I'm sure Carol will come back and explain what her conversation was with Adam. I wasn't there, Adam was there, Ross was probably there. Why the decision was made to do it that wide, I don't know. That is correct. All we really need is a channel to get in and out. The other point of that is Susan Hingeveld came here in March and complained about the noise.
Yeah.
And Carol went in her house this summer. And not only is the additional pump the noise at the east end of her house, she gets the dredger pump
So it's actually like, I mean, you know, she gets the rule and then the pump over here. She's had probably the worst summer on this lake, you know, ever. And, you know, that's neither here, but I think part of that, and did you discuss going to Susan's Point there any at all?
Yeah, I mean, that's why Carol said, especially doing that area that would be paid for by Solomon Harbor, is to make sure there's open water there.
Yeah, the Hingervilles have no open water and all they hear is boom, 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 boom. I mean, constant, 6 days a week.
And that's one of the things me and Carol talked about too, is kind of coming up with a comprehensive plan that would mitigate the sediment falling out in that area.
And I appreciate your thoughts on that, you know, because we do just need the channel and we've talked about filling bags with sediment and blocking off sediment from coming in, you know, in strategic planning. But it's cost prohibitive to have the labor out there to fill the bags and lay them out there. I wish there was a way to do something like that, build a berm.
So is there any merit? Because some of this is an engineering decision, I mean, assessment or which is certainly beyond my expertise, as it pertains to this. Is there any merit in like talking or engaging Christopher Burke to do an assessment of, I mean, a high level, not in depth, but
That would be up to the board.
so that we can make an informed decision as to the effectiveness of what's being proposed here. I mean, I don't usually like spending money, but to me, if we're considering spending, you know, in the ballpark of 65,000 or whatever, spending a couple $1,000s to make sure that it's a wise, I mean, there's logic behind it.
Malcolm, you're
It's
an
not
engineer.
something
What are your
I'm
thoughts on that?
opposed to doing.
I think that Bernoulli says if you have a big open gap there with the yellow and the blue, as you blow across from coming out of the Bean Blossom Creek, it's gonna cause a burble like this. It's gonna drop all kinds of sediment right where you don't want it.
Okay,
It will do that. I mean,
I guess the other question is going back is to kind of understand the intent of why we want it open that far. My guess, I mean, if I lived there, there's a difference in living on a channel and they had a bay there, right? And they're used to having a bay and it's gonna affect property value if that would all come in and they were just on a channel at that point. But does it mean that it all needs to be dredged down to a navigable depth? You can maintain the bay, you can maintain the view and not necessarily have to dredge it as deep as you would in other areas to make it navigable. You're just trying to dredge it to a depth that we are still looking out on water and we haven't had vegetation completely close that in. So maybe a conversation with her on what the intent is, because there really isn't a reason you have to navigate out there.
I think that is the primary intent, is to keep the vegetation from encroaching.
'Cause I mean, I certainly,
into that area.
I certainly support that they have to be able to get in and out of there, as you know, but does that whole thing need to be taken all the way down to navigable depth? I don't know. And is there, is 4 like the number you just do, or can you play around with that and just keep it so vegetation's not coming?
Yeah, I mean, you really could play around with that. We use that during the discussions. We averaged 4 to get it to a 5-foot depth there. But I agree. I mean, there's.
Are we gonna follow the maintenance line all the way to the north end of the lake? Is that the
Yes.
intent? Okay,
Yeah.
so that blue or yellow line is the maintenance line, is it not?
Where the maintenance line is where this vegetation is.
Okay, so yeah, we're staying within the maintenance line.
Adam, I've asked this before, but I don't really know the answer still. Is there something that prevents us from actually building a berm coming from the corner of that and redirecting the stream more to the north at that point? Because that's what you really want, is you want Bean Blossom
Take out
Creek
that
to
way.
blow out into this
Yeah.
newly dredged area and let it fill up again.
It's really just a permitting issue, since you would be putting in some what they call dredge fill. It's a 404 permit, from the Army Corps of Engineers to be able to put material into there. I mean, that being said,
It doesn't even need to
Mother
be.
Nature is currently building that
Yes.
bit right there, and if you have So when we've talked with the dredging companies coming out, we've highlighted this area right at the mouth of the creek to get it all the way back, specifically all the way back to the vegetation line, since they weren't able to do that with their current equipment. So as you have that, if you keep the southern spit of land here, you will promote that sediment migrating to the north faster. And I think you will see this southern land naturally
Right.
create.
What I am suggesting is getting something like a highway barrier, you know,
Jersey barrier.
Yeah,
whatever they're called, and put a couple of them there just so that the water tends north.
I think it'd have to go pretty substantial, it'd have to be earth. or-
Yeah,
But yeah, it could be done, and I agree, that's what you want, is to see that water kind of move to the north.
and it wouldn't block boats or anything, you just have to make a little
Yeah.
loop around.
So would there be merit, kind of going back to my question? about-
Yes.
Yes, I think that should.
Why don't we have Adam, talk to Christopher Burke and get an estimate as to how much it would cost for them to do a high level assessment in that area, and then if it's a reasonable amount
Or a low-level assessment, as you indicated earlier.
to,
Low cost.
high level, low cost. To,
Yeah.
so that, and then also understand from Carol better the perspective as to what their overarching objective is, so that.
Yeah, we've got 6 months, we've got some time,
That way we can make it.
but I appreciate the conversation that we had on it.
Just a couple more quick questions in. So with Salmon Harbor, I mean, if this was to come to pass, you know, was she proposing like piggybacking on our contract, or Salmon Harbor does their little triangle on their own with their own contractor, and then we do the diamond thing with our contractor?
I think that's kind of how it was set up, is in our current contract, if the LCD were to pay for that yellow rectangle, that'd be on our contract. And then they would work with the contractors while they're here on the lake.
Same contract, so it would be a.
It would be like their own, it'd be a private contract, but we should be able to leverage those same.
But with
rates.
the same-
Same equipment, it'd be a hydraulic technique, so. You know,
But I think that's good I can talk with Christopher Burke and try to see. We want to make sure we're not shooting ourselves in the foot, so.
Yeah.
I
And
appreciate the
if-
discussion.
If it did come to pass, then it would just be part of our contract that we just, our budget for next year. It would just be rolled into that as part of the scope of work.
Yeah.
Effectively.
Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 7, managers report.
First, we have the meeting dates resolution.
Are we going to get back to more than one summer meeting?
This will be the time to.
That was gonna be my topic too. I have talked to you guys about buying a sound system for Lake Lemon. It would be under $2,000. It would have all wireless mics, it would allow you to record things easily, easy to set up. It's in a case that you can, you know, hit with a bulldozer and all that. That would allow us to have fairly decent meetings at the shelter house. I think we ought to go that route, and now we ought to have 3 summer meetings again.
One thing that we have to take into consideration is in order to attend virtual, we have to be able to see and hear on both sides of the party. So when we have board members that attend virtually here, you can see them on the screen, you can hear them, you can discuss. So we would have to be able to allow that, or elsewise we would not be able to have virtual as an option.
Well, is that
As long as
a
we-
problem? Is it required?
It's not required that we,
I mean, we don't have it right now.
It's not required that we have virtual attendance.
well, we don't have it at this one because state statute explicitly prohibits the adoption of the budget to have any virtual.
Oh, okay.
But I don't see that as a real great reason to not
To not
have the
do that.
meetings. I mean, if we, as long as we're gonna think we have enough people that'll have a quorum.
They're always well attended. The people complain that there isn't enough openness in the board.
then followed up by karaoke night. with the equipment.
That's
Absolutely.
We did
Just
gadget,
You know, Jim Daniels.
echoing though, I mean, cause that's kind of the problem, it's just hard to hear in there.
Well, I mean, you'd have
Maybe if we come
a
with,
set of speakers
does it
going
come-
toward the audience, so yeah, it may echo, I don't know.
Yeah.
But we could put an equalizer on it and pull out the resonant spots.
I assume you could get more than just two speakers, maybe set them around the room or something.
Good, but
Two big speakers, like two.
two is plenty for that.
Yeah, too, and actually, Mike was there at the sewer project. Man, that sound system he had was real nice, with just those two single towers there and the wireless mics.
Say it with what,
At the sewer meeting that we had at Riddle Point Park there,
yes.
with that little sound system that he had was very nice, and you
Yes.
could hear it.
Well, did you speak to Jonathan, the guy in
I
District
sent him an email, never heard back.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll say something to him, I apologize, okay. Yeah, I think we can do the sounds, if you still have those pedestal speakers, is that something that we own?
You have that little one, the two pedestal ones from the Lemon Drop were mine, but you can get something like that.
Yeah.
And then Malcolm did have.
I was just gonna say, put them on the floor,
Yeah.
you know.
I think one of the reasons they did that in the past was July is when we did the first public discussion of the budget and having the PowerPoint for that. I think was a recommendation or was one of the reasons in the past that we had to hold them here. I'm not against.
It's a shorter drive.
Yeah, but it's 6 days of work week. But that's fine. If we're gonna do it though, now would be the time to do it. So we have the June meeting is June 22nd, and we stick with the same weird formula, which would be the Saturday following
days
the
later.
third Wednesday. That would put the July meeting on July 20th.
Oh, you're moving it earlier, let's see.
So it'd be July 20th.
And August 17th,
Well, it'd be
if you did three.
if we did 3, yeah. But
But if you wanna compromise and do two,
August, I think sometimes it gets very hot out there in August.
so I could do the compromise, you know.
Why don't we go with 2?
All right.
Yes,
Yeah,
And do the July meeting and the June meeting?
Okay,
yes,
Sound good? So doing it, put July 20th then?
that's a Saturday,
Correct.
10 a.m.
Yes.
And most of the commentary around budget comes in August and September, I think, anyway, right?
Yeah,
So you're
well,
presenting it.
September is the actual public hearing, so that would need to be here. But yeah, before that, I mean, it's pretty much discussion.
So with that, we'll need to obviously amend it, but we can approve it as amended and have staff update it for my signature, because I simply affirmed that.
We'll make a motion as amended,
Motion to.
so moved.
I'll second it.
We moved in second. Any further discussion on resolution 10-2305 as amended adopting the 2024 meeting schedule? See none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So we're gonna do 2 picnics, or do 1 catered picnic and
One
1 big.
picnic.
grill?
Picnic and one food truck, $50 food truck.
Yeah, honestly, the food, and then you can just buy your own foods or.
Yeah.
I like that. General update, we have sent out our bid requests for the hydraulic dredging projects for next year. Those are advertised in the newspapers and public notices as required. We have heard from, I have personally met with 3 companies that have come out to ask questions and review the area. Christopher Perth, our engineer, believes we'll have 4 to 5 bids on those. Those are due the 5th with potential opening meeting on the 9th. I do have to verify if we need to actually have a board meeting on the 9th to open these, or staff can open these at a dedicated meeting. Nothing will be approved at the 9th. We will open up these bids. We will send them to our engineers. Essentially, we just have to officially receive these bids. We'll give them to the engineers for evaluation, and we'll have him give us a recommendation at the December board meeting. It's a timeframe that we're looking.
For the opening of bids, what I've suggested staff do, I know for us, our attorneys have always allowed it to be a staff meeting that's publicly noticed that the public can come to, but it's not a board meeting, because all you're doing is reading the bids received and evaluating.
No one's slicker than your lawyer, I'm gonna tell you.
So hopefully the same provisions are here, so it doesn't necessitate us listening to bids that until they're evaluated by the engineers to determine if they're responsive and responsible, have no meaning.
Ask him how he was able to get emergency loans from the township government for so many years.
So November 9th, we may get our second River Point Park meeting. But it's gotta be open.
Okay, with those three companies, all hydraulic dredging companies,
All of them, yes.
any of them that you know of that have mechanical dredging?
No, there had been some discussion with McCall for the mechanical dredging. The biggest issue is the basin that we're using. There's no way to dump since you have to have a truck to get over to that area.
We can't use Possum Trot?
No, not for 115,000 yards.
No, for the mechanical.
Mechanical.
For saying for private work.
For private work?
Well, or LCD work, I mean, if.
For this, I mean, you can definitely use Possum Trot for the private work. For this 115,000 yards that we're bidding out with.
It's gotta be.
it's
Yeah,
gonna have to be-
I'm not trying to get, I'm just, but,
Yeah.
you know, because of some of the areas along the maintenance line, you're gonna have to probably get some mechanical dredging in there, would you agree, or?
We've actually been able to get right up to that Lotus line.
But this you get and pull out tree trunks and stuff, you'll.
Yeah, well, we've done that, so we've worked in unison with them, so when they get to areas where there's large debris, me and Ross have gone out on a barge and collected that.
And we're requesting a cutter head this time,
We will send this to the engineer to review their equipment capabilities.
thank you.
And finally, we met with Christie for our second to last meeting for the fundraising campaign. Kind of some of the discussion on that really focused on, it seems that utilizing the tax base and guaranteed revenue may be one of the best methods for the hydraulic, for the actual dredging portion of it. There were people that were interested in donating and naming rights. So what we're currently doing is creating a list of guided questions to meet with individuals that submitted interest in donating and naming rights, et cetera, so we can meet with them, not to ask for money initially, but to try to get, what are they interested in donating to? Is it dredging? Is it capital improvements? Kind of on what scale we're looking at. So we're kind of developing the question right now, so we have guided meetings individually with those people and then move forward. Do you have anything to add on that, Malcolm, or there's that kind of
That's
summarize it?
Yep. We're meeting again.
Where would we put naming rights?
Well, I mean, specifically, if we did like capital improvements, like the beach dock, if we did
Bathhouse.
a pavilion, a bathhouse.
The Bill Price bathhouse?
Yeah, exactly. Something, yeah, exactly.
Launch, program.
So I think looking at stuff like that, I'd probably be primarily capital improvements. And we have some of the discussions that I've had with freeholders, just like when I'm over at the marina and stuff, seem like there would be interest from individuals to have like a pavilion named after them or the dock or something. That's all I've got.
Any questions for Pat?
We did that in an hour.
Just one comment, I've noticed that the minutes, the text version of it haven't been posted since June.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
On our website?
yeah, I got it right here.
Okay.
So starting in July, it'd be nice to get those updated and posted because it saves you the trouble. I mean, the meeting is going enough, you know, and then I gotta go look through that. You know? So it'd be easier to, you know, to look through the text, I think, or the minutes anyway, to kind of get a feel.
Yeah, I'll do that tomorrow.
Okay, Okay, and I, and I understand that, we're always a month behind because they have to be approved, but.
Speaking of that, if I can jump on there, Les, is anybody else getting junk email from people that want you to go to the bank and use a credit card and buy something? And
You are, because I got one from you.
And
I got one, yes, and I've got one from you.
Pam Dugan, sends me stuff all the time.
Okay.
he doesn't call Mary Jane even, so.
Well, I mean,
I need help. or-
So I brought the cards with me tonight.
I mean, if it gets to a certain point, we should, because people can go look their IP address. I mean, we can actually catch these people. It's harassment.
It is, and they're tricky, and if, I always make sure like to never reply, like, if you click on like to see what their actual email addresses, because it'll be like PDDD.
Right, yeah, that's right.
Like something weird like that. We do have cyber liability on our insurance. And
Take that liability and pay for a private investigator to go after these people.
we also get faxes. It's not even just that, we get faxes all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how many millions of dollars have been
Someone-
offered through fax.
Someone's grandfather died the other day and $13 million came through the fax machine. We just had to go
I'll take care of the dredging.
wire him a couple.
Any other item? Eighth, new business, our next scheduled meeting is December 14th, 2024, here at CBU building, 6 p.m. With that, entertain a motion.
Is it too late? It looks like people came in late. I mean,
This gentleman, did you have something you want to say before we adjourn?
No, not really. I have a couple of items to discuss with Adam or Ron.
Okay, you were doing your, okay. Motion to adjourn.
he wanted to speak.
Moved in second, barring any objection, we stand adjourned.
Thank you.